Hello and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. I seem to be slightly off screen. There we go. Excellent. Last time on Plugging Along, we localized our changes to the Soliloquy of Spirit tracker, and we fixed up other cleanup issues that had just sort of accumulated over time. Each time I thought, oh, that'd be a cool thing to fix, it went on the list, and we worked through that list last time. And now today we'll walk through the steps to release an updated patch. In this case, I'm just going to update my existing patch for MinstrelBuffs instead of trying to separate out the two of them, the prior patch and then this one. So we'll walk through the step to release that updated patch, and then it occurred to me while we were doing this one that some of my other plugins are misbehaving a little bit in that they're not respecting the F12 button to hide when the UI hides, that kind of thing. And so I thought it'd be nice to just step through those other plugins and say, is that wrong? Is there anything else wrong? And if nothing else, we'll just land on the D tracker and fix some outstanding bugs there as well. So, thank you, camera. All right. As always, feel free to jump in and chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, away we go. Looks like there's a watcher in the stream who has a baby who's on a timer. Good luck, Campbell. All right, well, here we are on top of the kin house, well, one of the 4 kin houses in the Shire neighborhood. Just in case I need it, there's a farmer down there who's, well, just would be a delightful healing target. And so what are we looking at first? First, we are looking at the, oh, let me switch over my desktop view. There we go. We're going to look at, we're going to go open up the plugin manager. And in the plugin manager, we're going to make sure MinstrelBuffs is loaded. In this case, it is. And then we're going to go ahead and switch on over to our Watcher over Resolve trait configuration. Excellent, because that gives us the Soliloquy of Spirit. Soliloquy of Spirit being a stackable healing over time. And then the actual plugin changes that we are looking at look like this, where a window pops up showing you how many of your Soliloquy of Spirit you have, and also what tier inner strength we have going. You know what? We'll pop one over on Tourmaline over there. We won't, because I'm in Dissonance Dance. There we go. Okay. Excellent. So we can see the plugin is still working. It's where we left it last time. Excellent. Now, let's go ahead and make sure we have our source control up. If we make any last-minute changes as a part of deploying this patch, then that'll be a good way to track those. You know, actually, I said this could be a continuation of the existing patch. I don't know if that is a correct way to do it, because someone might very well want the timers that the existing MinstrelBuff plugin gives these timers, but they may think that this is a silly idea. On the other hand, they could just turn it off. So I have to think about that. All right, I guess the real question is, what's the default state of this? Is it on or off? If it is off, then I think I'd feel comfortable shipping it, because we've instituted policies that we do not do any chat monitoring at all if this checkbox is off. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what the default state is. All right, opening up our trusty text editor, we're going to go ahead and delve into Lord of the Rings Online plugins, and this is in the MinstrelBuffs plugin, and that's going to be, oh, what would it be? Maybe it's in the option window. Let's go ahead and check for, we localized things last time, which means we're looking for use Soliloquy Tracker. Excellent. That's the use Soliloquy Tracker localization key. All right. So we're going to set settings, get Soliloquy use. There we go. So, do we have settings? We do have settings. All right. Excellent. What's the default value for this? Do we have a default value? Okay, if that's nil, then we set it to true. Okay, I think it might be better to default to false. It's certainly been nice to default to true for my purposes. But if this is going to be a combination thing where all of it shipped out in a single patch, then I would want that to be false, to not enable this unless someone goes in and finds it. On the other hand, the combat timers and the soliloquy are two, it feels like different things. If we go to lotrointerface.com, MinstrelBuffs. Really? Maybe it's a space. Minstrel buff. No, I just misspelled it or something. Okay. So currently there's the patch that I released a while ago. Yeah, a while ago, which was the MinstrelBuffs with out of combat timer. And that's good. That is pretty much what it says on the box. It's all about that out of combat timer. It's all about tracking when your ballads are going to expire, if possible. Sometimes it's not possible, but that's okay. Or sometimes our local timer thinks they should still be good, and the server disagrees, and the server wins that argument. So, new question. What has changed? When's the last time I put out a patch here? Let's find out. Apparently it's been a while. Neat. Okay. Yeah. On the one hand, I'd like to split it out. Maybe. On the other hand, it might introduce kind of a definitive, this is a patch on a patch, which isn't really a thing. Like this is a patch, but you have to have this other patch installed first, which sounds kind of Part of me is wondering when's the last time this was updated by Melida. And the answer is the last time this was updated by Melida was 2014, which makes one wonder what the protocol is for taking over a plugin like this. Because certainly we've seen that happen with Hios taking over Travel Window, for instance. That's a question for another day, I think. Okay. I think we'll just add it onto this patch. We'll keep it defaulted off to start, and then we'll see how that goes. Okay. So if that being the case, we want to know what's different between the last patch and this one, and that's pretty easy to do actually. If I go ahead and download both of these, I can kind of make my own manual comparison point. So if we extract MinstrelBuffs, extract, it's happening off screen. Exo says, feel free to take over my plugins whenever I run into a new problem. No, I'm not going to take over auras. That's not going to happen. I want you to keep working the problems. All right, and now we're going to extract the MinstrelBuffs without a combat timer. Excellent. And then, ideally, these each have a MinstrelBuffs folder inside of them. I accidentally multi-selected that. That was silly of me. All right, yes, we have a MinstrelBuffs there. Good. And in our downloads, the out-of-combat timer, we can go ahead and do a merge here. And Windows should do something like say, hey, are you sure you want to do that? Excellent. Yeah, let's replace those. 17, that seems like a lot. Okay, so that is a freshly installed version that we can now compare against. I'm going to delete some of these so I don't get confused. All right, so that's our fresh, untouched version. Now with source control, we can also get there as well, but right now I don't want to backtrack through all of this because this is what we're using. This is the new code. So I'm going to just use beyond compare to start a comparison, and then I'm going to compare that against the version that's in my LOTRO folder. So documents, LOTRO online, plugins, MinstrelBuffs. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. So select left folder, select right folder, or compare to MinstrelBuffs, and of course it's on the wrong monitor. There we go. Okay, oh, hey. First thing I see is that we still have the proposed Soliloquy Tracker. This was the initial rough diagram I did in MS Paint as a way of saying, hey, what will this thing look like in its final form? And I think that's actually pretty cool, is when we take a look at this, let's see, Tourmaline, are you close enough? You're not. No. Okay, there we go. So if we take a look at the initial rough sketch of how is this going to look, and we settled on the third row's way of representing the tier, this is kind of close to it, right? Like, other than that green border thing, which has been replaced by just a white border if we're selected, or no border if we're not, and some extra colors to convey information about the state of the tiers and the Soliloquies of Spirit. But that was a mock-up done in MS Paint, and that's pretty good, right? Like, that's pretty close. I like that. I feel like at this point, I do not need to keep that anymore. At this point, the actual screenshots that we're going to go ahead and take will be better. But just for historical curiosity, I thought that was neat. That still, and, oh yes, here we go. That was one of the files that we never actually committed. One of the changes we never committed. I'm going to go ahead and discard that. And we, as we just saw, we changed settings. So default Soliloquy of Spirit Tracker to off. At least I'm pretty sure that's what that does. We should probably test that. And then finally, we have an options window. There's a show debug options. We want that to be false. That's just true locally for us as a developer. And then this dump function should not be used anywhere. In fact, we can check for that. So first thing, we're going to go ahead and clear the current folder that we're going to search in. And then plugins, MinstrelBuff, great. Let's go ahead and search for dump. And we can see that's only used in the function itself. Excellent. And this is where we can go ahead and take care of those with a stash. If we're using a modern source control type program, it probably has a way to lift changes out and set them aside, but not delete them. And so we can go ahead and stash this and say debug stuff. And those changes are gone. If we go back and look in the file, oops, wrong button. If we come in, we can see main no longer has that. And if we look at the options, we can see that show debug is defaulting to false. Awesome. It's like those changes were never there, but we actually still have them in this stash. So we can come in and say, oh yes, the dump function is right here. Setting that to true is right there. As soon as I'm ready to have them again, I can go ahead and apply that stash, apply those changes. But for right now, I don't need to worry about them. Excellent. So there are no uncommitted changes. Great. So coming back into our comparison, we can get rid of that. This is going to show us everything, but what we really care about is what's different. And this is where file comparison, folder comparison utilities are really useful. We can say, go ahead and just show me what's different from there to here. And this will help us know what of these things are we interested in shipping in the final zip file. For instance, all these things labeled docs, that's an internal thing that I use to populate the LOTRO interface website, the forums, that kind of thing. Don't need to worry about that. So what else do we have? We have to do. Generally, that's a file I don't bother to ship. That's my sort of internal file. tracking what I'm trying to do, but in general, and it even says none, nothing to do. Ship it. But I don't ship this particular file. If this were really complicated, and I've been thinking about this for the deed tracker, it would probably be a list of issues in the source control repository and not just a little text file. There's a happy medium where something this tiny, okay, a text file works, something like the deed tracker, that's probably way beyond a text file. Somewhere in between there. It's a good transition from just a plain text file to something a little bit more robust. But either way, it's in the source control. It just doesn't need to be shipped to people. They don't need to know that I have worked them into this or have a gigantic to-do list. It doesn't belong in the final shipping, I don't think. But we have border, excellent. And a thing that I'm thinking of, because this is a patch, is we're not looking to include every file in our shipment. We're only looking to include the files that are needed to bring the release of the MinstrelBuff to match what we have right now. So that's only the files that have changed. Buff window has changed, has it? What's different? Oh yeah, that's if that's the only change, then that's not a very compelling change. But a question is, was buff window already changed? And this is where I probably shouldn't have deleted the thing. All right, so we'll go ahead and extract our patch, the previous version of the patch, and we'll come on in and see just those files that changed. Okay, buff window had already changed, so it's pretty safe to change it again in this patch. So we're not introducing a new file change. Okay, I'm happier with that then. In combat timer control, again, this one was one that already had been changed in the previous version of this patch. And we can see, okay. Oh yeah, that fixed a bug with ballads lingering. This is actually like the only real timer change that's going into the timer patch. All right, main. Main was already changed, so that's not a problem. And we have so much that needs to change anyway, so that's good. There's a debug thing in here that was useful for me for testing, and because it's set to false, it's probably going to ship out the door. It's one of those where, like, do I want to ship that sort of testing code or not? But the reality is, the end user is not going to see it, so it's only going to be there if someone goes in and mucks with the code, and if they do, that makes their life easier. So that's probably okay to stick that. All right, we have option window. This is a change. Let's see. But it lets us have that soliloquy of visibility checkbox. And so there's a required change for this. So that's a new file. All right, that readme. Let's take a look at that inside of a text editor. Little Redhead asks, which plugin are you working on? If Little Redhead is directing that towards me, I'm working on the Soliloquy of Spirit patch for MinstrelBuffs. And if she's talking to EXO, then that is Aura's. Probably. Which someone on one of the Discord servers recognized as a name from the World of Warcraft plugin ecosystem, which I'm curious, is that a lift there, or are they just similar things that happen to have the same name? I see. Little Redhead was saying, me telling someone about my stream, they play a minstrel. Neat. Yes. So the core plugin is, as we've seen, MinstrelBuff, which gives you an on-screen view of ballads and anthems. And then the MinstrelBuff without a combat timer is the patch that I released that includes a timer that estimates how long you've been out of combat, or rather, how long you've got to get back into combat, or else your ballads will expire. And so just shoehorning into this patch is this new feature, instead of trying to split them apart. All right. Well, we'll leave auras alone then. Okay. The README file. Let's take a look at the README file. What's in there? Probably something. All right. This is changes. Neat. Okay. Yes, this is the change where we go ahead and say, well, we didn't think the ballad should be expired, but the server does, and the server wins. So that's fine. And then that's going to be... Oh. Oh, weird. That's like from 2 days ago. Awesome. Well, cool. The one sheep. Thanks for putting those here. Sorry, just looking at a comment. Am I not subscribed to this? It's my patch. Am I not logged in? No, I have a private message. That's fascinating. Oh, I've seen that. Okay. Or whether I saw the email bounce. That's fine. That's for something else. Okay, so this is a thing to think about. Is someone has submitted some patches for different languages. Neat. Love it. I think we'll be able to take that and roll it into this patch. The thing I was looking at was, is this the correct version number? And the answer is yes, 1913. Okay, added a Soliloquy of Spirit tracker window. Requires, and then I had to go back and remember what this thing is called, the Watcher of Resolve. Requires the Watcher of Resolve trait configuration and activating in the options window. Is that the right thing to say? Options, yes. We'll just say in the options. Cool. Shows how many Soliloquy of Spirit and inner strength tiers the target has received from us. And that's an important distinction, is this does not show how many Soliloquy of Spirits are on the target. This is just how many have come from us. So if you have 2 or 3 or more minstrels, each doing their own stack of up to 3 Soliloquy of Spirits, you can see more than 3 on the target. Maybe, most especially probably on a tank. I've seen that. So this is just all about you. Okay, so we've added a little note here. It's quite a short note for all the changes we've been doing. And so, yes, that README can go ahead and ship. I like it. Settings, is settings reasonable? Well, settings is necessary because we added something to options. And so all of these changes are a part of that. Excellent. And then new file, new file, new file, and timer control. Timer control we had changed previously. So again, it's safe to go ahead and change it here. And this was all necessary to be able to support that changing yellow to show, or red to show an impending inner strength failure. And so that we could have another control know that the timer ended, because previously the timer had just stopped itself, and as a side effect, the effects list probably dropped it off. Because that's the thing, is this is using an effects list, which works pretty well for the current player, to know if these are ready to go like that. Okay, so those are the changes that we've seen. The other thing we want to do is take a look at the docs folder, because this is where we'll want to take some screenshots and write down some words that will help convey what's going on here for the LOTRO interface forms page and possibly the LOTRO forms as well. So what we have here is we have some images. Are we going to replace one of these images? Oh, I don't know. I have a mini watching, so maybe explain the plugin when I have a chance. Sure. All right, so just from first principles, the MinstrelBuff plugin, the goal of that is to show you which ballads and anthems you have active. And that was really helpful for me as a new minstrel, well, not new at that point, but to really fix that idea in my head of how long do ballads last, how long do anthems last. And so I added on this timer that shows when are your ballads going to go away. And so, of course, if you are not in combat and haven't been in combat in a while, you will find the tooltip here incorrect because it says expires if out of combat for 9 seconds. Well, it's been more than 9 seconds since I've been in combat. And yet, my ballad can persist. So what's up with this? I've been out of combat for minutes or possibly hours. Why are these ballads still here when they expire if out of combat for 9 seconds? So part of understanding what happened with ballads, that was an important part when I was going through and making the patch to include this timer, is to figure out what does the game mean when it says expires when out of combat for 9 seconds. And the answer is slightly more complicated. But that's what we get from this patch, which added that timer. And suddenly I could know, oh, my ballads are going to expire unless I get into combat real fast. Let's do something about that. And as the tracking of the anthems has always been there in MinstrelBuffs. And so now what we've added in is the Soliloquy Tracker, which is more of a healing thing, which goes ahead and tracks how many Soliloquy of Spirits, remember they stack up to 3 times on the target, and what tier of inner strength, because that's going to be 1, 2, or 3, and because inner strength has a cooldown of 30 seconds, but Soliloquy of Spirit has a cooldown of 45 seconds, they can get out of sync really easily. You can have that situation where there's 3 Soliloquy of Spirits on the target, but they have tier 0 or tier 1 inner strength just because that timed out at the wrong time. And so we can see Affidil's inner strength is about to go away. So if we refresh that, that's fine. Oh no, Tourmaline's is about to go away. So that's the goal of the Soliloquy of Spirit. It's meant to be sort of a companion to the out of combat timers aspect, to just give you more insight into when stuff is going to expire. And we can see here, Affidil currently has 2 Soliloquy of Spirits, but still should have a tier 3 inner strength. Well, let's see if that's correct. It is. Awesome. And I find that much easier to just glance at this and see, okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, than to try and discern that from the buffs on your player bar or someone else's player bar while things are constantly being added and removed and changed up here, so things are bouncing around. And I just have a hard time visualizing that. Okay, so that's a quick summary. So, with that being said, we have a list of changes since the last patch. And more importantly, we can also get just a total list of changes from the base. And that was another thing that I could have done, and I did not. So let's go take a look at what that would be. So if we are in our downloads folder, we have that patch. We have a MinstrelBuff patched to 1.9.1.2. We have the patch itself. I want to have the base version because that's the real thing that we're comparing against. This is what we have to have all the different files from. So we're going to go ahead. I don't need a separate Explorer window for that. And we're going to call that MinstrelBuff base. Excellent. And we'll extract that. Okay, so the final thing we're going to do is get a comparison of what's... Am I in the right place? I am not. All right, so I want to compare the base to the release and then start constructing our release folder. So documents, LOTRO Rings Online, plugins, MinstrelBuffs. All right, show me what's different. Excellent. And we can go ahead and just pop that up here. And finally, in documents, I have a plugin along releases. We're going to go ahead and make a new one. This is going to be MinstrelBuffs version 1.9.1.3, I think it was. The good news is I wrote it down. I don't have to remember. There we go. Okay. And so, a thing that we can do is just build this up kind of from first principles. We have the base. Then we can go ahead and copy that in. Now, I'm misspeaking because we don't want to include any file that is unchanged. But we do want to create that folder, MinstrelBuffs. I feel like I need a checklist. Okay, so what goes in here? Oh, of course. We have these the files from our previous patch. That we're going to go ahead and copy in here. Oh, I think I've gone one layer too deep. Yes. Perfect. Okay. And then we need to build up that delta that we saw before. Okay. So we have plugins. There we go. Okay. So we have the patched to 1912, and we're going to go ahead and reopen that delta. Okay, we don't care about docs. Oh, but MinstrelBuff.plugin, we can go ahead and update that to 1.3. Great. In fact, we should do that back here as well, so that will make its way back into source control. So MinstrelBuffs, and that is 1913. Plugin companion. Oh yes, I was trying to see if that would work. It did not. Okay, great. What else do we have? We have a to-do file. We already said no for that. But we do have border. We're going to copy that over. Buff window, in combat timer control, main, and option window. We're going to make sure that those come on over. Replace, yeah. And then README and settings. And of course, the Soliloquy Tracker row and window are going to come on in. And finally, strings and timer control. Neat. And we're going to replace the timer control that was already there. Perfect. Okay. Those are the changes necessary, the delta necessary, and we can prove that to ourselves. because if we go ahead and go back to our downloads folder and make a new one, copy the 1912, and we'll go ahead and call that MinstrelBuffs patch to 1913, then we can go ahead and just apply these changes right here. So if I copy this in, hey, there's replacement stuff, yep, that's fine. Then ideally, if I compare this to what's actually in my plugins folder, we're going to see that being identical. And this is sort of just a manual check on ourselves. And we can see, yes, that is what happened. We don't see the to-do file, great. We don't see those docs, awesome. But everything else is exactly the same. So that convinces, that's a way to convince myself that this patch file is going to do what I think it should. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to do a little window cleanup here. Let's just close some stuff. Okay, so for this patch file, we need a zip. We also want to update any words that we're going to do and any images that we want to do. Now, it would not hurt to have some images. I'm going to go ahead and invite Tourmaline here into my fellowship because the being in a fellowship means I can go ahead and get a target ability going on here so that I'm able to click both of us. And that's reflected in the UI. There's no dash in front of Tourmaline's name to show that there's an exclusion there. So I'm going to go ahead and get a couple more effects. And then go ahead and get my snipping tool up. In Windows, there's a snipping tool. We're going to go ahead and do a rectangular snip. Copy that off. And then we're going to go ahead and boost that and boost that. Excellent. Okay, so we have a couple of screenshots. I'm going to save that off. We have documents, Lord of the Rings Online, plugins, MinstrelBuffs. We have docs in here, and we can go ahead and start naming this. We know this is 1913. And we could call it image 1, but really we're not replacing what's on LOTRO interface. So this is just for our own records. And so we're going to call that, what is that? Missing soliloquy. Excellent. And we also have this one as well. Of course, documents. Lord of the Rings Online. I just realized my mic is in a different location today, so hopefully the audio still comes through okay. MinstrelBuffs, docs, and then we have missing inner strength. Okay, I'm going to open up an Explorer window and pop into that same directory. Lord of the Rings Online, plugins, MinstrelBuffs, and docs, because I decided I've already misnamed this. That should be the full Soliloquy of Spirit. All right. And now we have these as reference images, whether or not we actually use them somewhere. Oh, thanks, Little Red Tail. I'm glad it sounds good. Okay. So clear out those capturings. And then we have a possible plugin description for LOTRO interface. So we're going to come in here and do 1.3, open that up, and here is the plugin description. Excellent. So the main focus of this was the ballad expiration. However, we're going to go ahead and add a section. So ballad expiration, and then Soliloquy of Spirit. Spirit / inner strength tracker. New in v1.9.1.3. You can enable this Soliloquy Tracker in the options. Once enabled, sorry, I just mentally think my way through this. Once enabled, this will pop up a window whenever you use Soliloquy of Spirit on a target, showing your current Soliloquy of Spirit stacking 1 to 3, not really, 0 to 3, and current inner strength tier 0 to 3. Okay. That is good. If I really was feeling up to it, I could upload those pictures somewhere and then reference them here, probably. I'll have to refresh my memory what the BB code or whatever markdown that they're using looks like to embed an image. But this and the LOTRO forms seems to behave very similarly. And so I'm just, on my other window here, on my other display, I'm just popping open a window on an FTP server, making a new one, mint plugins, and then MinstrelBuffs. And then that's the only problem I have with these images here, is the presence of spaces are going to make that website unfriendly. So I think I'll upload them first and then fix that, because I don't want to rename them here necessarily, but I do want to have them not have spaces in the names, because it'll just be nicer. So let's see. Let me drag that over so it's a little bit more interesting to watch. This is just core FTP. It seems fine. I don't have a strong connection to it versus any other FTP client. But it does let me rename files with a GUI interface. And really, what more is there to life? Cool. Okay. So we have our files here. That's great. And if we go ahead and test out that path, we can come to Life Beyond the Shire /plugins /MinstrelBuffs/that. And we've got an image. I forgot to crop the thing, didn't I? All right, let's go fix that. All right, thanks, MS Paint. I was so busy wondering if I could take a screenshot. I just have to think what that would look like. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and upload that over there. And then same thing, we can go ahead and now refresh that. Great. And then let's duplicate that. Come on in. And great. So we can reference those from whatever forum code that we want now. And I've got those open just so I can copy paste super easy. So what does it look like? Well, I don't remember, but I do remember that the D-Tracker post on the LOTRO forums did embed some images. So let's go take a look at that. If we look at plugins, Cube plugins, it's me. D-Tracker website, that's what I put it on. And then we can see LOTRO forums description. Let's take a look. IMG, great. That's exactly what we needed. example 1. Okay, but I actually need this. This is our first example, so I'm going to pull it on up here so that we can kind of caption what's going on here, and then we'll be able to do that one as well. All right, so we have the URL. Example screenshot showing that's too wordy. Daffodil has 3 Soliloquy of Spirit and a tier and inner strength tier 3. Tourmaline has only 2 Soliloquy of Spirit and inner strength tier 2. Because her inner strength is not tier 3, the background is red. And then something similar for this one. So we have IMG, and then end IMG. Example 2. We have something very similar. Daffodil has 3 Soliloquy Spirits and inner strength tier 3. Tourmaline has only 2 Soliloquy Spirits, but inner strength tier 3. Because she does not have all 3 Soliloquy of Spirit. The background is yellow. There we go. Documentation complete. Spirit misspelled. I would never do such a thing. Yeah, spritz. Thank you. Spritz. We'll just select all spritz here and assume it's supposed to be spirits. I appreciate that. I've been mistyping. You would think I would mistype soliloquy more, but I've been more cautious with soliloquy each time. So thank you, Mogdug, for pointing that out. A downside with working so much in a text editor like Sublime Text or even Notepad is that sometimes I will forget to run my stuff through a spell check. But why would I ever make mistakes? That's just crazy talk. Okay, so that's an update to our documentation. Awesome. That's a way to get around, hopefully, the LOTRO interface site only allowing 4 images per plugin over on this side here, is by embedding some inline. And that's fine. I don't think they mind so much because they're not paying for hosting or the bandwidth for displaying those images. All right, so are we done? That feels like we're pretty close to being ready to upload. So we will need to create a zip file from our patch files. So in our documents, plugin along releases, we're going to need a zip file. Documents, plugin along releases. Let's go ahead and make a new one. New compressed folder. And we're going to name it the same thing, MinstrelBuffs whatnot. All right. Now the trick with this, and I don't have an easy shortcut, is that you don't want to drag the outer folder. It does need to be this inner folder, the thing that contains that .plugin file. And ideally, if you extract it, it's going to look similar to the plugin that you're patching. So the same structure within that zip file. All right, now we have a zip file. Yay, we have our documentation. I think we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and do an update to a patch. So what does that look like? We are logged in, excellent. And we are looking at a patch that we own, my account owns, B414, that's mine. So I can go ahead and hit the edit button. If this is a patch on a patch that you don't own, then you're gonna have to upload it as its own thing. But in this case, we can go ahead and do a bump to version 1913. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and replace 1912 with MinstrelBuffs 1913. Great. And we're going to go ahead and bring that description in. Oh, Now, I forgot to double check the description for other things like 1.9.1.2. Awesome. Verify the version is 1.12. If it is that, if it's 1911 or 1.9.1.2, then you have a properly updated patch. Okay, neat. Oh, and of course the release history. That would be nice. Now, I think I like a reverse chronological order so you can see what's most recent first. I'm not, stuck on that, but. All right, version 1.9.1.3. Remove ballads if even when they disappear, even if our timer disagrees. Also, introduced Soliloquy of Tracker Spirit tracker window. And then if and when I get around to posting on the LOTRO forums as well, I'll go ahead and have a link to the full release notes there. This is just sort of the high-level summary. That was something I started doing after, apparently, December 2020, was let's go ahead and do a quick summary here instead of being like you have to go to somewhere else to figure out what's going on. All right, still no spritz, so we're good there. So let's go ahead and copy this into here. Now, Chrome will, in this case, try to find some misspellings, but of course, Deep Sky Blue is not misspelled, and so we're going to have to look around that, and MinstrelBuffs. I don't see any other squiggly lines, so we'll go ahead and assume that that's good. All right, I don't want to delete any old archive files. I find them useful to a point. And then we have the 4 pictures. I'm fine with that. All right, notice if you're uploading a new file, do not stop your browser midway. Otherwise, bad stuff happens. Yes, I'm comfortable with this. All right, let's do it. File has been updated. Click here if it's not automatically refresh. Great. Now, we do, of course, have the standard posting rules. This could take a while, and they might arbitrarily decide not to allow it. We may or may not decline you, or contact you if we decline your submission. All of that being good. That being said, if you're a poster in good standing, it seems to go pretty fast. So, if I go back to list my interfaces on the home page, we can see MinstrelBuffs without a combat timer has been updated. Great. So that looks like it's gone through already. And we can see that our inline images are working just fine. As is the new title that I did for Ballad Exploration, Soliloquy of Spirit / Anthem Tracker. This is all looking great. That's it. That's an updated patch. Updating a patch file feels actually easier than updating a plugin. That felt like there was fewer steps there. Oh, I've totally forgot this comment about language, though. Let's go take a look. Now that we've done all that other stuff, we can go ahead and look at just the language changes that this person has commented on. So, we have, hey there, I was just about to do my own patch for the German skills. When I find this, so here's my contribution. All right, let's go take a look at the German. Well, the different language files in general. In MinstrelBuff window, right, okay. We have what's the file name? Well, I'll just go ahead and do a directory level search. Okay, good. This is in Minstrel Effects. So, they think valid ballad effects German stays the same. Nothing wrong there. They think valid anthem effects And they're also commenting that some of them could be commented out. Now, I don't want to do a character by character analysis here of what's changed. So the easiest thing for me is to go ahead and copy that. In fact, I can copy each of these blocks into its own little text file. And French comes later, excellent. And using my preferred file comparison utility, well, first I'm going to go ahead and save this. Downloads language changes.txt. We're going to go ahead and do a file comparison. So open up downloads, language changes. I'm going to select that as the left side. And then for my right side, I'm just going to go ahead and come back into MinstrelBuffs. And that was MinstrelEffects.lua. So we're going to go ahead and compare to that. Now, in general, Beyond Compare is pretty good about matching up partial fragments. So we can see here that we can match up the valid codescale names, valid anthem, excellent, and then French as well. And then you can manually line things up. In this case, it's the F7 key to say, no, you have done a misalignment here. Here you go. Okay, so now we can see side by side what's going on here. Let's take a look at their description, make sure I understand what they're saying. All right, so first off, they say ballad effects is fine, no change. Just like in English changed the writing of the 3A anthems and some naming, it is now one of them per trait line. 2 anthems I commented out because they were moved in U12. Now, I don't actually feel the need to comment these out. I think it's kind of neat to see the historical changes that have come about. So let's see, Anthem Effects. Yeah, the Anthem of Whatnot from update 12 or update 11 and before. Like, it's kind of neat to see that, and it does not hurt to have that support in here. Okay. So they've added some German comments. Nice. So we can see in red and yellow and in blue trait lines, they've gone ahead and fixed that. I have to ask though, why are those in different order? And do they need to be in a different order? So we're going to go ahead and see what's different here. When was this? This was recent. Okay, I was trying to figure out because we can see that the changes, the relevant changes here are the comments after the double dash. So that's cool. What about this? Okay. And they say that's now the hymn. Is it? I mean, they would know, wouldn't they? But I am curious. So I'm going to pop open a skills reference document. Oh, it's only in English, of course. I have to get one of those in German at some point. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and pull across the hymnen versus hymne. And what's the rest of this? The rest of this doesn't really change stuff, except we get some comments. I love me some comments, so we'll get the LOTRO. All right, and Blower. Now what's interesting is their submitted one says melody and resonance, all right? Melody and resonance. So I would expect melody to be yellow and resonance to be blue? Maybe. Let's see, what is this one? This is resonance. I'm in resonance stance. Okay. Now, looking at codas, we can see the coda der Jorlingus has been moved around a little bit. So I want to go ahead and put that down here just to save changes. Yes, do save those changes. Okay, meta. What's the other half of that though? In halting ersatz. Meta skill replaced in stance. Okay, so it sounds like one can have this, but it's not needed. That's okay. We'll bring it on over. Okay, and then what else do we have? Coda der Jorlingus. And then they've added a couple extra ones. Well, I don't mind being thorough. Let's go ahead and grab those. And then, of course, that comma here is going to be necessary after the true. All right. Now, we're just adding that white space to be consistent with the existing file. Oh, the existing file has tabs? Oh, that's so sad. Okay, well, sure. I'm not a big fan of tabs, but I am a fan of being consistent within a file and not changing it for change's sake. Okay, that all looks fine. And then, you know what? Let's go ahead and keep those comments. I like it. Okay, so we can see just white space changes there. Now if we pop in down to the French, resonance should be blue. Excellent, it is. Again, we're seeing some white space changes, but it looks like we're going to pop in an A hat, an A hat, and we'll go ahead and include those comments as well. Exo apparently coming out in strong defense of the wrong side with hashtag tab gang. I'm sorry, Exo, I thought we could be friends, but someone who's so wrong on a topic, I don't know. Now, in the inconsistencies. Exo says, look at how many spaces you had to achieve the power of a single tab. You know, if every computer system in the world knew that a tab was, say, 2 spaces, the correct number of spaces for a tab, and you knew that no matter who was viewing your file, they would definitely see 2 spaces per tab when converting tabs to spaces, then I don't suppose I'd have so much of a problem with it. But the problem is some people, heretically, will have a tab equal to 4, 6, or 8 spaces, and then it just messes with the visuals of a file. So I think tabs are best left in the world of word processing, where they belong, where they probably originated, and not so much in programming. That being said, consistency is the important thing, so you know, you do you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pick up these as well, and a space. Oh, you know, this is inserting tabs. That's very sad. Just gonna fix that. This is actually where tabs fall down the most, is inline vertical alignment between stuff. because that will absolutely break between computers showing different tabs amounts. No, I don't feel too strongly. What gets me is when a file has mixed spaces and tabs, and then there's no consistency whatsoever. Especially leading, I should say, the leading spaces versus tabs. If there's just a mix of them, it is a bit painful. Okay, so we've gone ahead and picked stuff up. And you know what? We can go ahead and get these comments updated as well. And at that point, we might as well make sure they are the same vertical for all of our comments, just in case one cares about aesthetics and symmetry and all of that. Okay, so we have those. We have, would be nice to have that in German as well. I swear I'm hearing Breland music in the Shire housing. That is weird. I wonder if there's someone set music in the house. Okay, so there we go. I feel like the comment here for resonance and melody is wrong for blue and yellow, so I went ahead and went with the way I think, but because it's a comment, it doesn't actually matter. Oh, I'll take the meta comment too. Thank you. Since nothing is actually changing in the implementation, that's just a comment change. So that's totally fine. We're not bothering to comment out the ones that have been removed. It does not hurt anything for them to be there. And I think better. I think the right path forward would be at some point to just strip all of them out of all the languages that are no longer valid. But you know, it's been a while since they've completely revamped minstrels. You never know. That could be like right around the corner. Erebor housing, and then bam, change everything about minstrels. I mean, hope not, but that could be. So this all looks good here, but I would like to see that in situ, as it were, inside a text editor, where. Excellent. Okay. So those were the language changes over here. And then here we are in Minstrel Effects, the file that contains the various language components. And we can see these are lining up despite the tab versus spaces question. And then the real question is, have we broken it in such a way that it is no longer a valid Lua file? So I'm going to go ahead and unload all my plugins and then load MinstrelBuff. Okay, good. We didn't see any errors into the standard output. And so my manual modifications of these Lua tables did not break anything. That's excellent. Okay, neat. And then that was, I think, the only change they recommended. But let's go back and check that comment. All right. So that names, I guess they're okay, but since you added the improved version, so did I. I could not get a Vicar to show up, but felt hesitant to comment it out, so I just added a meta comment. Cool. And while I was at it, I decided to have a go at the French skill names. This is my third language. I'm really bad at it. Points for trying, please. Oh, absolutely. Points for trying. And then the two anthems I commented out for German weren't here to start with, so it was that. Then again, him 3A was missing the A hat. Added that, and it seems to work now. Awesome. Let's see other comment. I cannot 100% vouch for the French version, but use my German translation and it shows everything just fine. Sweet. Thank you so much to the One Sheep for submitting that over here. I do appreciate it. If you happen to be watching now or later, I will make a reply here. But first, let's go ahead and document this in our README file. Version 1.9.1.4 changes included the One Sheep's German and French localizations. And that's it, right? That's the only change. So we're going to go ahead and start a new one, MinstrelBuffs version 1913. We're going to copy that over, and that gives us a 1914. Awesome. Oh, of course, when we're doing a version bump, we want to come on in to the plugin compendium, not the plugin compendium, my apologies. We want to come over here to the .plugin file. That's going to get updated. And then, is there going to be another one? I can't remember. That works for me. Okay. That seems good. Let's go ahead and do a file check. So, in Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, Plugins, MinstrelBuffs, we can go ahead and select left, select right, and just go ahead and spot the differences. Oh, we don't worry about docs. We're not worried about resources or themes. We're interested in what changed. Okay. Minstrel effects, we want all of those. So we're going to copy that over. We want the README. And we want that MinstrelBuffs.plugin with the 1.4. The rest of it is stuff that never changed in the first place, and we're good. All right, delightful. The only other thing we need at this point is in docs. We want to go ahead and create our plugin description for .4. Text files are small, and this just gives us a historical record of the things that we've said. All right, and so this is 2022 01/18 version 1.9.1.3, and in fact, this I'm just going to steal from the README file. Included one sheep's German and French. Well, I won't name and blame them here. Updated German and French localizations. Neat. Now, other thing one could do is one could exit out of the game, change the language, come back in, change stanches, and kind of see the names of skills that go past. Mognog says, man, I need your text manipulation with keybind skills. Yeah, I have a lot of practice. Part of it is the tool, right? Like Notepad, for instance, does not have a lot of keybinds that you can do. Sublime Text has more, but some of them just being more comfortable with moving around with arrow keys, page up, page down. Some of that's good. Definitely if you're looking at doing textual manipulations, being familiar with some of the keyboard shortcuts, like Control Backspace to get rid of a whole word instead of going, back. If you hit the backspace or delete key more than a couple of times, there's a shortcut probably. Or if you want to preview your change first, you can do a Control Shift and then left and right to move your selection around word by word. And you can be like, yep, we're going to delete that. And I'm sure there's shortcuts that I'm missing, right? Like these are just ones I've picked up. For every one that I use, there's probably two that I don't use just because I haven't realized that they're available. So we're all at our own place on the keyboard utilization. All right, so we have updated German and French localizations. Translations. I don't have the fix this bug keyboard shortcut, asks EXO. If I did, my plugins would be very different. But that's okay. Ideally, and I have these processes, let's make a release, let's check to make sure things are going in that I'm intending. That's all there just to prevent reversions back to previous bugs, right? Like I hate that idea of releasing a plugin as like I fixed this one thing and I broke these three other things that I fixed last time, right? So anyway, there's a lot of just in casing going on here. Okay, so I did change the name, or sorry, the term I was using there. Localization is the process of getting the plugin ready for translation, and then translating is the thing that is, you have translations of the strings. So we're going to go ahead and just update to use that term because it'll make me a little bit happier. Okay, so we are in good shape to go ahead and make that zip file. So we go ahead, we make a zip file. If we're really clever, we've copy-pasted the name first, but that's okay. And then into the 1914, we're going to go ahead and plop this MinstrelBuff folder. All right, there we go. We must be good to go. So let's go ahead and edit 1914. And if I'd been really clever, I would have remembered that this was outstanding before shipping, but yeah, that is what it is. We're going to go ahead and get this plugin description here and paste. And that's really it, right? Like, we're just updating. Awesome. Click here, redirect. And we can go ahead and see we have updated German and French translations. Great. And now's a good time to reply. Could you maybe include my language fixes into your file? So something to watch out for that really aggravates me about the LOTRO interface messaging thing is that if you reply to someone, their reply is not automatically quoted. And it makes conversations really kind of confusing unless you have gone and intentionally quoted things, because it's all just flat there, and you have to just remember which parts were from a previous message. It's weird. But thanks so much. I included these in the 1.9.1.4. All right. Bogdog says, I assume LOTRO is the only game you work on plugins/mods for, or do you for other games as well? No, that's correct. Part of that is a side effect of I just don't have a lot of free time in my life, what with language classes and knitting and chainmail, which I have an outstanding project that I just haven't gotten back to in so long, and all sorts of other projects, right? So I only have so much time. So the time, the plugin time that I do is actually kind of getting carved out of the playing LOTRO time, although it's kind of a meta game for me. But yeah, I just don't have the time to both dedicate myself to another game and also the plugin and infrastructure around that other game. So it is just this one for me. But my understanding is that because Lua is used across a number of different games, if you have an understanding how to write plugins in Lua for LOTRO, then really what's going to be different is that API, that how do I interface with the game and stuff. Bogdan says, nice, what languages are you learning? I am trying to learn Dutch. I am living in the Netherlands, and the people here are very nice and very capable at speaking English, much better than I can speak Dutch. But it is their country and their language, and I am attempting to assimilate a little bit. So we are doing Dutch classes, and they're pretty intensive for what they are. So we go off to a space in a building that has it's known for having a library, but there's classrooms up on the 4th floor, and so 4 hours Tuesday, 4 hours Thursday, and then a dozen hours of homework after that. So that's like 20 hours a week just for that. Exo says, if you can write a functioning plugin in LOTRO, you can write a functioning plugin anywhere. Excellent. Yeah, and so that's really what's up, is knowing how do I talk to the API to do the thing, right? And if you're lucky, there'll be some sort of API documentation, or at the very least, crowdsourced understanding of how to do the thing. And not everything that you can do in LOTRO is documented here, but a lot of things the community has documented out in the forums. Things like the set stretch mode, things like the plugin meta variable that's available during startup and teardown, things like that. And so the combination of the API documentation and the wisdom of the crowds here for LOTRO gets us a long way. Yes, the thread by Garen, absolutely. I have it shortcutted here. Writing Writing LOTRO Lua plugins for noobs, it says. So if you're not familiar with this, I do recommend. In fact, I'll just post that in here. If you're not familiar with this thread and are looking to learn how to do LOTRO plugins specifically, do give that a check. Garen goes through all sorts of things to do with LOTRO plugins. I think I might have linked to a specific post there, but it's fine. So yes. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So that kind of is the Soliloquy of Spirit tracker shipped. At that point, if I wanted to double check that one change that we made, you know, I could have checked that before we shipped, but whatever. Then, a thing you can do is unload all your plugins and then go into Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, plugin data, and we'll just go ahead and rename that to something like old, right? We'll slide the existing plugin files out of the way and then bring MinstrelBuff back in. And the thing that we're looking for is the use Soliloquy Tracker is not checked. Now, if I check it, unload and reload, I expect it'll stay checked. But the important thing was by default, if we did not already have a save file saying yes, it's enabled, is that it's not enabled by default. This will be like a hidden feature that I and 3 other people know about, and you're all watching right now. Okay, so I've unloaded. I'll go ahead and delete that, slide this back into place, and then, oops, wrong one. We can go ahead and see that my settings are restored. So that's the thing to remember. If you're playing around with setting files, and I recommend having a backup if you're mixing this with your personal gameplay account. But if you're playing around with setting files, remember to unload your plugin first. Otherwise, when you do unload your plugin, you're going to overwrite any changes that you had made in the meantime. Okay. Neat. So, a thing I was thinking of was, how about hopping to other plugins that I have done something for and see what are we missing? And so the first one that comes to mind, and I think someone else has mentioned this, is the Opaque Quest Tracker. Has someone made a comment yet? Have it disappear when hiding the LOTRO. Yeah. Okay. Oh, hey, it's Mocknug. It's you! You did this! Well, hey, who am I to deny Mocknug a request? Let's do it. Or in words, someone who's faking out your name. I assume it's you. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and pull up the Opaque Quest Tracker. For those who haven't seen it, a friend of mine was having some visibility issues where the text in the tracker, let's go ahead and pull up some Moria quests here. Who doesn't love some Moria quests? And the problem they were having was their eyesight wasn't, or perhaps isn't, the best. And so when the quest tracker text appeared on top of a complicated background, as it is right now, you can see the color of the quest text is almost the same as the color of that tree, or pointed at a rapidly changing background. And if you don't have very good eyesight, that can be really tough to read. And so the whole point of the Opaque Quest Tracker was just put something opaque behind it. The same thing as we have for chat windows. And I call it the Opaque Quest Tracker, but really you can put this behind anywhere. Exo says, this is why we need thicker borders on outline text. I firmly believe the people at SSG have thoughts on how to update the UI, and that is, the text is one of many concerns that they have to think about. Okay, let me go ahead and plop another one. Bam, you can see just where I am in Moria. Okay, so the first problem is it does not disappear when you hit F12. That is such a rookie mistake. I cannot believe I did not even think about that. The person I make this for loves taking screenshots. How did I not think about that? The good news is that's pretty easy to take care of. In fact, we can just lift some of that code straight from any of the other plugins we have that already work. So let's dive on into plugins and Q plugins, Opaque Quest Tracker. This thing is pretty straightforward. We just have Opaque Quest Tracker.lua. And I'm going to go ahead and back out a second because we were just looking at MinstrelBuffs, and that one had main. So, all thing we could do is we could respond to the control backslash. I don't think we need to. But the main thing is the toggle HUD action. I want to grab that. Let's see. Man, I really just shoved everything into one file here, didn't I? Yeah, good enough. So where do we respond to key action toggle? Well, in the Soliloquy Tracker window, we add a process key down. All right, so we need a window in which to do that. Do we have a window? We have a create main window. We have a create main window. Great. Mouse down, mouse up, mouse move. I'm going to shrink some of these things down. Mouse down, mouse move. All right, so window dot process key down equals, and remember, if you want process key down, you do want to remember to set wants key events to true. So in this case, window set wants key events to true. If you miss that, then you will never receive a key event, and so your process key down, it will not be happy. Interesting. What are we doing with self.keydown? What's going on here? Why did I do that? Hang on. What was I thinking? All right, we're going to go ahead and search for key down here. Self.window key down equals self.key down. I don't know. Okay, that could have been important, I guess. We'll find out. Oh, I think I know. Let's go back to our API, because I think I've actually been reading this backwards. If we come into UI, turbine.ui and look at control, then we see a, let's see, key down, that's what it is. So we get a callback called key down, and what's happening here is we're dispatching that to the object-oriented version of that, so we get this pointer. And that sounds great. Let's do that. Okay, so window.keydown equals a function that goes ahead and does process key down. Oh, we don't actually, we're not doing a class-based system here. All right, well, in that case, we don't need to dispatch it any further. Probably. Let's go ahead and see what else they do here in the process key down. Okay, it looks like we just want to, they were doing more complicated things here, but we really just want to set to visible. That sounds great. Let's do that. Window, not self, set visible, not window is visible. Now, is that the right function? I can't remember. Let's check for an is visible. Is visible. That's great. Okay, so whatever it is, flip it. Except we do want to check for the right key down. This will flip the visibility on every key down, which will be a hilariously bad effect. Okay, so that was if that equals toggle HUD. Great. If args.action equals that, then this and end. Okay, that looks like a function. Okay, Exo says, the rework has been hopeful that I won't need to extend my custom numeric font to text as well. Fingers crossed, right? Like, you know, it's one of those things where it's hard to tell. They don't seem to have a desire at SSG to have complete transparency in what they're working on at all times, right? And that's understandable. Very few companies have that level of scrutiny available. Like, you don't get to know what a developer is working on today. And so if one or more people at the company are working on a UI redesign, I don't think we're going to find out about it until there's meaningful results to show. Just like with Legendary Item Revamp, there was, oh yes, stuff's happening, but then all of a sudden it was like, and here's all the stuff that's going to happen. Rawr. And so sometimes that can feel a little overwhelming. It's like, wait, that was a really fast transition. I have whiplash. But you know, the alternative is we see a dozen dead ends where they tried a thing and it didn't work. They tried a thing and it didn't work, and you know that's a hard needle to thread, right? Okay, let's give this a try. We've gone ahead and added that in. So if I hit F12, it goes away. Hooray! Now this will, of course, have the same problem that the UI state will toggle if you press escape. That brings the UI back, but all the plugins will be out of sync then until you use escape again to sort of unset the UI. But the escape key, which we can look for, doesn't do that until all the on-screen windows are closed. So if I have an inventory window and then I press escape, that absorbs the escape key, and it's not until that second one that will pop up that system menu. And so that first escape does it, okay. But now, if the inventory window is open, that first escape doesn't do it. And so we can detect the escape, but it just kicks the problem one step further because we can't detect, to my knowledge, if the escape was absorbed by an on-screen window or if the system menu has popped up. So that's sort of a side effect of the fact that the system menu always needs to be visible. So one of the things it does when you invoke the system menu, the UI is now visible regardless of anything else going on. So I can see why it happens, but just be aware of that. That will impact your plugin. It impacts everyone's plugins. There's nothing to do about it. Okay, so we now have the first of two changes. In fact, hang on a sec. I forgot about my source control. Okay, we're going to go ahead and commit these documentation things. Okay, so that was the V1.9.1.3 documentation. Great. We're going to commit that. We're going to get that new number back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and have all of that, and then we're going to bring the debug stuff back. Okay, now we're done with that for a moment, so we're going to come on in to so many repositories, but Cube plugins, there we go. So what I would like to see is this change in the Opaque Quest Tracker. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so we have that. In fact, we've got some extra new lines. What's going on there? There we go. Because I was busy adding a new function I didn't need. Okay, so that was the first change, is respond to the F12 key. Now, a second question, do we have a README file? Seems like overkill for this, but sure. The 1.0.3 respond plugin now responds to F12 key to hide HUD. Okay. Great. What's going on? Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so that was the first half. Now we saw Mr. or I don't know what the correct would be. We saw that Mognog here has said Have it disappear when hiding the UI. Cool. And have an option to lock the position, but not size. Different quests cause the quest log to be different sizes, so resizing the Opaque Quest Tracker is often required, but not necessarily moving it. Fascinating. I love it. That was one of the things, is I wasn't sure exactly how much changing would be necessary, but I could totally see that. In fact, I could see wanting to support resizing it, but only like in the very bottom left corner or something. But we'll start with the easy part, which is Opaque Quest Tracker should probably have some sort of an options. I don't know. Where do we think options happen? Draw options control. That sounds like it. So let's pull that up so we can see what we're drawing. Plugin Manager, Opaque Quest Tracker, options. Cool. So we have opacity, lock the window in place, and then, well, if we just split this out, right now we have lock the window in place. We could split that out into lock the window for movement and lock the window for resize. All right, let's try that. For resize, no, for movement. All right, so we have a locked checkbox. And we're going to go ahead and say locked movement checkbox. And I gotta say, what was I doing? Options.size changed. Locked movement checkbox get left set width. I don't know what I was trying to do there. Maybe just make it wrap. Yeah, sure, why not? That's strange. And then locked size checkbox. So that was just a multi-select. Remember, in a tool like Sublime Text, you can just select everything of certain characters, and then you can change them all at the same time with a multi-select. Very handy. I use that a lot. And if you're worried about touching too much stuff, you can do what I just did there, which is pull it off into its own file, its own view, do it there, and then bring the changes back into your main file so that you know that your changes can't go too far. Because a multi-select could potentially touch hundreds or thousands of lines. Like I've had multi-selects that are multi-selecting across many thousands of things, and that was intentional at the time, but it could be unintentional as well. Okay, so add a checkbox to lock movement for size. Lock the Windows size. All right, local locked size checkbox, blah, blah, blah. Now, we do need playing options locked. So let's fix that first. Playing options locked movement locked size equals lock the Windows size or something. As I will say repeatedly, naming things is a little hard. Okay, so options locked movement, I think is what I called that. Yep, locked movement. And then we have locked size. Now, of course, we're splitting one setting out into two, and so it would be nice to carry forward the lock state to both of these things. So let's go ahead and take a look at the settings and see how that's done. Where do we load those? Load settings. sensible. Okay, so if we loaded something good, then do stuff. If settings dot opaque when dot locked, then let's go ahead and carry that forward into, actually, yeah, if it doesn't exist, then locked size equals that and locked movement equals that is fine. Whether it's true or false, that's the good value to have. So locked movement, we'll go ahead and copy that off. There we go. So if the status of locked exists, then go ahead and pull that over, and then we can go ahead and clear that out so that this only really happens once, right? So when this gets saved off, either it won't get written to the file at all, or it'll be written as a nil value. Not sure what that would look like. We can play around with the actual save file and see what that looks like. Okay, so that's a thing that occurred to me as we were doing this splitting out, is how to be friendly to the people who are already using the thing, and suddenly it's unlocked when they do an upgrade. That wouldn't be very friendly. All right, let's go take a look at what else we have. We have, okay, lang, we have locked movement. When we have the setting, check change is locked, mouse visible, set mouse. Okay, so we're changing the movement by changing mouse visible. That's going to have to change because it's wrong. Yeah. Okay, locked movement is locked. We're going to go ahead and set that first. And then this is the part that needs to change. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just comment that out, because now we can't just turn the mouse off. We have to be smarter about it. We still have to pay attention to the mouse enough to reject the wrong type of thing. Same thing down here, actually. Is locked equals that. We're going to go ahead and say locked size equals that. And we're going to comment out these two lines as well. Because in the mouse handler, we now need to care about locked size and locked movement. Okay, we can do that. So let's do that. So that's the options controlled changes. And if we unload and then reload, we're going to see we have an error. In fact, I have not even bothered to create a new tab yet. So let's do that. We're going to go ahead and call that plugins. And we'll just make sure that standard and error are going there. Okay, so what happened? We can see I messed up. What do we have? Quest Tracker Lua line 56. All right, looks like I forgot a semicolon at the end of that table. Come back in, that was it. Excellent. Okay, now we can see how did that happen? That's fascinating. Okay, I'm going to pause here so we can play around with the plugin data. And this is on Treebeard. This is Fiddle. And this is the Opaque Quest Tracker settings. Great. Let's come on in here. Because I'm curious, if I said locked equals true in the old file, then what should happen is both of these should have been set to the same thing. No, there we go. Okay, so that should have been locked at the end of both of those. Excellent. Good little bug to pick up there. So if we go ahead and load this now, we can see both of them are set to locked. And if we come back in to the settings, I'm just going to combine those windows here. We can see locked, if we go ahead and say equals false, and then come back in here, that we can see they're both in the off state. Perfect. So locked equals true. And notice I'm unloading the plugin each time I come into play with these, so that when I do unload the plugin, if I had to do that, it wouldn't overwrite these settings. Okay, and we can see we're back to both of them being there. Excellent. And we can see locked does indeed get removed from the file. So setting that to nil, it's not going to get written out to the file, and that's how we update our save file with new stuff. If this old thing is there, do this thing and remove the old thing. Great, now we're on version 2 of the save file. And it does not matter which version someone is on, this will work for our purposes forever. Awesome. Now, the save file is good. We need to handle the mouse. So, I don't care about laying right now, or get string, or any of the is0 format stuff, or the default settings. Don't need that. Just got to find the functions I do care about. Save and revert. Okay. Create main window. That sounds right. Okay, mouse down. Yes. So, mouse down itself just saves off some information. It doesn't actually start doing much. And so, mouse up is just saying we're not down anymore. Mouse move is the important thing. And so, we have a couple of things. If we think we're resizing the border and that's disabled, then we're done, right? So if, oh, I've forgotten what it is. Options dot. Settings, there we go. So if settings.opaquewin.locked, this is resize, yes, locked size, then return. We do not care. Do not do any of that stuff. Similarly, if we think we're moving the window, oh, actually, let me put that comment back up there. Okay, resize the window. Okay, is resize enabled? Then resize the window. Okay, that's what we're doing, right? And then the same thing is movement or move enabled. Dot locked movement. So if movement is locked, return. Then move the window. Awesome. So now we have more fine-grained control over what's happening with the window. So we can see, I can't drag it. Oh no. So here's the problem, is the mouse visible is on for that. Is there a way to say I don't want to handle this mouse visible? Set mouse visible. Okay. What about mouse click? Is there a way to say I don't care about this? Oh no, because that's a really large area to sacrifice to not being able to pan the camera. Mogdug, what do you think? This is a feature request coming from you. Is it worth the Opaque Quest Tracker always taking your input for that window? It almost feels like there should be a sacrificial control, maybe down in the bottom left, that does let you resize the window, and only it is the thing that would absorb in this. I don't know, because that's rough. That's a big area to not be able to click the background and or click that bread oven. You know, I can't click that because this window is in the way. An icon would be better. What would fit, like maybe like the inventory lock icon like this, where you would click it and then like would it be a shortcut to these, where you just click it and then you can do stuff and then click it and we're back to being locked? Because that would be easier than splitting these out, frankly, is just having a little lock icon where you click it and then it's synonymous with having gone into options to deselect it. I wanted this to be as unobtrusive as possible, but obviously if you're having to resize it a lot because of your quest changing and you want it to fit pretty precisely, yeah. Okay, so a little lock would be great. Well, that's good to know. Now, I don't know what the internal icon number for that is, but that's okay. Maybe I only have the lock show on mouse over. But can we know we're mousing over if we're not receiving mouse? I think the answer is no. But we could have that control itself be semi-transparent until you're over it, for instance. That's super easy. Like with the, I'll go ahead and load up the deed tracker here. And it'll take a moment. Like, for instance, this icon here, you can see it's semi-transparent until you've hovered over it. And so if there was a lock icon here that was like 3/4 transparent, but then you hover over it and then it's fully visible, that might be a good compromise. Okay, so I don't know what that image is, but it doesn't matter. We can pull out that image ID later. Let's see. How much time we have here? Okay, we are approaching the end of the normal scheduled time. So what I'm going to do here is go to a to-do file. Oh, interesting. All right. Well, I had stuff here. Notes from 2022-01-18. Started to split out locked for movement and locked for resize. But this means the window must receive all mouse input to discriminate, to differentiate, and now we have a big rectangle blocking mouse. New plan. Imitate the inventory lock icon to quickly lock/unlock the window. No need to split out into two lock states. Okay, so I think that's it. And then the lock icon in my mind's eye or whatever would show up in the upper right hand corner, but the only problem with that is that this radar actually has a really huge bounding box, right? Like anything that radar is going to be on top of things, and it's going to be on top of stuff down here that you would like to click on. Is there an example? Like if I bring that radar to the front, you can see how much it overlaps this chat box here. And so even if I wanted to select this text right here, I cannot do it if the radar is in front of it. Now, that kind of leaves the bottom right as a possibility. Now, that's not a very intuitive spot to place an icon, but it is kind of guaranteed to be away from the default location of people's radar. Now, you could have moved your radar to other places, but because of that huge box, I feel like maybe it's less likely that someone would have stuck it in the bottom right. I mean, you know, people can do whatever. So maybe it would be good to have an option for which corner the lock symbol appears in. Let's make a note. Have option to determine which corner the lock icon appears in, and then it's your problem. Default to lower right so it's out of the way. Lock icon should be around 25% opaque until mouse over. Yeah, okay. And then that requires actually not a lot of changes because you have a new control. That's fine, we can make a new control. But it just changes that one thing. Are we locked or not? And so the key thing is to remember when the Opaque Quest Tracker window resizes, move the lock control to stay in the corner. Because if we make the Opaque Quest Tracker window less tall, that lock needs to get stuck to the bottom. Little Redhead says, not default to lower left to line up with the other lock symbols of quests. It's an interesting question, but my concern is that we would then have this little icon in the corner of our eye just sitting out here in not quite the middle of the screen, but way farther into play area and way more likely to catch a mouse than if it's over here almost at the edge of the screen. I try to avoid clicking on the edge of the screen because if I do that on my monitor, the LOTRO client resizes and also snaps to the other screen, like that. So I try not to click too close to the edge of the screen. But yeah, I think that's my instinct is don't put it kind of out where people are going to click on it. Put it next to the edge where it's kind of out of the way. I would have it in the upper right because that feels kind of intuitive from, say, the inventory is upper left. Like having buttons to interact in the upper right feels like a normal extension of like the X button in a window. But that radar is very big. And generally, you want the radar on top. So, okay. I think that's great. I think we're going to go ahead and split out this for something to do next time because it's a little bit of a bigger task. Now, real question, should I just release this response to F12 now or just wait until next week and get both of these together? And, excuse me. Well, you might be typing an answer to that. I'm going to get a drink of water and see if there's anything else in chat. Now, I will say, if you are the type of person who doesn't mind editing a plugin, this update is better, in my opinion. It can wait for next week. Excellent. If you absolutely need it right now, this is the text to do right here. Window.keydown equals a function that checks the arguments if it's a toggle HUD and then toggles the visibility. And the only other thing you need is that HUD is defined to be the hex value 100000B3. Now, sometimes you'll see in a plugin that number just goes straight in. So instead of having a variable name, you'll see just a hard-coded constant. That's fine, except I don't remember what that constant is. And so I have to kind of work backwards and deduce, well, we're toggling visibility. Maybe it's the F12 key. Whereas key action toggle HUD is nicely mapped. If I come in here to my key mapping and I search for HUD, I'm going to see, oh, toggle HUD after, oh, that's what that is. Right, so just naming it after the thing that you will find in the key mapping screen just makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so that's the change that you need if you're going to do it before the next release. All right. Well, oh, looks like Scenario is going to be streaming tomorrow. Is there a link that I've missed in chat here about a poll? Well, if you're a fan of Scenario doing tours around various landscape areas in Middle-earth, check out the poll that is probably on the forums if it's not closed yet, and cast your vote. There it is. Vote on the first casual stroll of the new year, and then tune in to see the actual casual stroll. So tomorrow. Neat. Thank you, Little Redhead. Okay, well, it is on the hour, and I think this is a natural stopping point. So, tomorrow in 22 hours. Okay. Wait, at 22 o'clock or starting at 2 p.m. server time? Okay, starting at 2 p.m. server time. Scenario is a stroll through Middle Earth. Excellent. Okay, so this is a good stopping point. And I think that's all I've got for you. And so that's all we're going to cover. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you next week where we finish up this change for the Opaque Quest Tracker and then go in search of other things to fix. Until next week, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.